Today's guest is Asis Sethi, and she is a director and owner of her own production company. I thought she'd be a great guest to talk to because I think she really represents the majority of filmmakers here in Canada. I'm in Quebec. She's in Ontario. We met at the Netflix Diversity of Voices program at the Banff World Media Festival. Asis, let's start with, what is the Netflix Diversity of Voices program?
You're right. We met in Banff a couple of years ago. I think it was 2023 through the DOV program. And we were 100 filmmakers of color who went there, and we get a chance to network with a lot of executives. We get to network amongst us as well. I remember there was a session with us and Netflix as well. It was like a lunch. We met each other. Everyone who's in the cohort got to know about each other's projects, which was great because there were producers. I remember there were actors as well. There were directors, there were writers. So it was a great way to meet people who live outside of Toronto for me, because I'm Toronto based. And it was nice to see what was happening in BC, Quebec, and all the other regions in Canada. The other thing that DOV had, so I was the pitch participant that year. So that means we had a couple of extra sessions. One I remember was with Netflix. It was a private Netflix event, and they had two of their executives. They talked about what was Netflix looking for, what are the current projects that they'd like to have for Netflix, and where is Netflix going, and how is it planning to grow, etc. So it was a really nice session where you got to know what are they looking for and what is the market like right now. At the point, even though we were pitch participants, we didn't really get pitching opportunities to Netflix, which I thought would have been great. But I realized Netflix was not looking for pitches at the time. I know that's another story for another time. But through the program, I did get a lot of meetings with executives and broadcasters. I remember meeting with Channel 4 and a lot of broadcasters outside of Canada, which was good because it's easier to connect with Canadians here locally from Toronto. But if you're going outside of Canada, it's difficult to connect with them unless if you're at like Berlin or Content London or something, right? So it was a great way to connect outside. The other things I really enjoyed was learning. There were a lot of good learning sessions. So what does the market look like? Where is it heading? I know this year they have panels on AI. They have a Korean delegation coming of producers who are looking to co-produce, which is great because, as you know, you attend so many markets. Co-production is the way to go from now on for every project, right? You can't really wait for your project to be greenlit in Canada. You need to see what other sources are and funding is available outside of Canada. So anyone who's interested in co-producing, look at the treaties that are available through Telefilm, go on their website, go see what is co-production if you have never done one before. And there are lots of forums coming up as well. There is the Cross-Continental Forum, and that's happening in Barbados in June. Actually, it happens right after Banff, and I'm heading there right after. So it's a great place where you get to meet high-level producers from Canada, the UK, South Africa, and all of Caribbean. So if you have projects where you think it would be a good fit for co-production, attending these kind of forums and events and markets are a very good thing for your production company.
Very cool. I didn't know about that conference, so thanks for sharing. Staying on the Banff World Media Festival, for anyone that hasn't been or isn't familiar with it, how would you describe what that is?
For me, I thought Banff was great to network, meet with executives. It's almost like a summer film school, but you don't learn how to make a film, but you learn everything else about the film industry and the television. And I shouldn't say film, it's very television focused. So one thing I did wrong the first time I went 2 years ago was I didn't realize it was a very TV focused. I went in with my feature. I did have a few TV projects, but my feature was the most developed at the time. If you don't want your feature to have a theatrical release, but you want a TV movie, Banff is great for that. There are lots of production partners there. There are a lot of broadcasters or fast channels that look for TV movies. There are production partners like Neshama, Attraction, and Sendo who look for TV movies. There's also Tubi. So for me, I think Banff is great if you want to learn more than what you already know about the TV industry. It is great to connect with. So for example, if let's say I was an actor and I was heading to Banff, I would be connecting with producers and directors or agents. There are a lot of agents that come as well from the US and Canada. And I wanted an agent. Maybe I would connect with an agent. But now if I'm a producer or an entrepreneur, like for Flyaway Films this year, I'm in the Banff Spark program. So I'm taking about 7 projects with me to Banff, and they're all very different from each other. So I'm heading there as a producer and not a director because I'm trying to get my projects greenlit. One thing I would like to say is don't expect your project to just be greenlit on the spot. That never happens. There are lengthy discussions that take place, right? You can't just say, hey, I'm pitching my project and it'll be greenlit in 2 minutes. That never happened, right? There are
They're
lots
not
of
sitting there with their
conversations and
checkbook open.
exactly, right? So don't expect that to happen. This is a great way to start a conversation and start that green light process. Some filmmakers actually have already started that process before they head to Banff. That they've already met those executives on Zoom or virtually, and now they're meeting in person and getting into more details, right? So it's great for that. They have speed meetings, which are very helpful. They're like 8 to 10 minute meetings in person. I remember I used to, even though I had 2 scheduled, I would still go and line up early in the morning before it opened up because there were a lot of no-shows. People who were partying the night before never showed up. So, you sometimes score a rare speed meeting with someone from Australia who you'll never meet again. So it's a great way to network that way. I found the roundtables really helpful, and that's how I met Brenda Gilbert, who is a fantastic mentor. She's the owner of Braun. She is such a go-getter. Everyone should meet Brenda if you're going to Banff. And there are a lot of good people who can be either your mentor or co-producer. So it just depends on why are you going to Banff. Just have a goal in mind, right? What is your goal? What do you want to achieve out of it? All right. Is your goal to just, if you are a director, are you going there with your demo reel and you're going to production companies and saying, this is my demo reel, hire me as a director, right? Or are you a producer who's going in with a slate of projects and then you have certain target meetings that you need to do, right? So just go in with thinking about what your goal is and set those meetings way in advance. Don't wait until like the last week. Most meetings are already booked, so you might as well get started ASAP.
Now, you mentioned going with a slate of 7 projects. I think the jump from here is my film to here is my slate is such a huge step in the growth of any filmmaker and especially as a production company. Can you speak to when you took that jump, how you approached it? When did you realize I can't put all my eggs in this one basket? And then also how you kind of built this diversified portfolio of one-offs and series and digital. I mean, tell me about your slate.
As we all know, it's a very high stake industry, right? There are lots of financial risks, there are creative risks. And if you are, you and I are both directors first and then producers, but we both are entrepreneurs. We both have our production companies. We both have a slate of projects. So one thing I've always realized is in this industry, especially if you're a person of color, it's very rare to find one person of color who is only a director or only a writer or only a producer. There are some, but you can only count them on your fingers because it's very difficult for us to get that step into the door. And also for me, for Flyaway Films, when I started, it was also because there are stories that are never being told. There are stories that I want to tell or my friends want to tell or my coworkers want to tell, but we're never able to. Hence why we started our own slate. When you, as a production company, go in with a slate, you're telling them that you have a certain vision, right? Your company has a certain vision. It's like you're that brand, right? They can also trust you with consistency. They can trust you with scalability. It's much easier to see that you're a serious filmmaker because you have developed a slate. Now, developing a slate doesn't mean just writing a few ideas out and having pitch decks. There's a way to do it, right? The first step we have at Flyaway Films, we have an internal slate development first before we even go out to pitch. We need to make sure that our internal slate that we have, for example, Slam Dunk Sahaj, we knew from the beginning there's a market for women in basketball. There's this this project is very viable. There's a market, there's an audience, there's a demand for it, right? And we know we can get it done in a certain budget, which is feasible for theatrical release. So internal greenlighting for us is like, as a company, we're 5 women of color. And what we do is with every project we have, we discuss with each other, do we see a market for this project? Is it a project that can be sold? Can it be greenlit easily? Can we easily find financing for this? Where is our audience for this project? If we check mark all those boxes, then we know, okay, this project is greenlit internally. Now we develop it to get it greenlit externally. Now, greenlighting externally to me is not just getting $2 million and go and shoot your feature or something, right? It's more of, okay, is your project in pre-dev? Is it in development? Do you have a solid script and are you ready to head into production? Where are you getting your funding from? Right. So thinking about those green lighting steps, it's not just green lighting and here's the money, go make the film. It doesn't work that way. It's a collaborative process with whoever green lights your film as well. Right. So starting from pre-dev, then development and so on, and moving your project further. When we also, I know I got into green lighting all of a sudden from my Slate.
Saved me a question.
But also, like, when you're going through that process, think about, I'll go back to the Slate again. Think about, where are you pitching it? Is it a project that has an audience outside of Canada? If it does, where else can you find that audience? And then how can you co-produce it with an international partner, right? For example, like I mentioned at Banff, there's a Korean producer delegation coming in. Is there a project on my slate from the 7 projects that I can pitch to them, which will be of interest to them? So thinking of those things ahead of time, doing your homework of who's attending, who do you want to meet with. The Banff Exchange portal is really good. It has every delegate that's attending. It has their information, their bios. Some people also upload their project and pitch materials. You can also get to know who's pitching what is the market looking for. Even when you go for those speed meetings, they always say looking for this, and this, right? You never want to pitch, for example, a horror show to someone who only buys comedies and vice versa. Right. So do your homework. Don't just attend a speed meeting without knowing anything about the company. It's going to waste their time. Even if you're attending a roundtable, do your homework. Think about who you're going to meet with on that table, who's the lead speaker on that roundtable, and figure out, what does their company do? What kind of projects? What kind of genre? Right. So do your homework before you go there. That's a big one, because I've seen so many people not do that. And then it just makes you look unprofessional and they won't take you seriously as a filmmaker.
That's great. I want to kind of unpack that into, I think, 3 buckets. I guess I'll start with, and hopefully I won't forget the other 2 before we get to them, but I'll start with the product market fit, which you spoke to, and that's research. So let's say I know that Asis is looking for comedies, and I have a comedy, and that allowed me through Banff Exchange, which is their online portal or database so that you can set up meetings ahead of the conference. So I'm going to pitch you my comedy. That's cool. But what if in speed meeting or speed dating, whatever we want to call it, I get a meeting with you. I don't have any comedies. Do I drop the meeting, or do I pitch you a comedy knowing that you don't want one?
Had that scenario where I got a speed meeting last minute, like a minute before the meeting was going to happen, and I found out I'm going to get this meeting because the person was a no-show. I knew nothing about that channel because it was outside in Europe. I quickly went on Google as I was walking to their table. It took me 60 seconds. I put their name in, went on their LinkedIn, and a lot of times on LinkedIn, their job description says what they do, right? If they're in acquisitions, or whether they're a development executive, or whether they're business affairs, or what department they're in, whether they're head of production, you easily get to know, okay, I'm going to talk to this person from this channel who buys this, and this is their job title and job description. So I literally, as I was walking, I was doing this, and I got there and I knew I didn't have, this was a scenario, what you said was exactly, I had 8 to 10 minutes. I had no project to pitch, but what I instead did was I didn't want to make up a project on the spot. It looks unprofessional. It's undeveloped. It doesn't doesn't make sense. But what I went in with, I introduced myself, I introduced my company, what we do, and then I said, I know your channel does this and you specialize in this. What exactly are you looking for? And then all of a sudden now they know this is my company, this is what I do, and then I've presented what we have, but I don't present my slate, because if, let's say, it's an unscripted television, which it was an unscripted television station in Europe, and I didn't want to pitch all my scripted projects I had at the time. But that meeting went so well. I knew exactly what they're looking for. What kind of shows are they going to fund the year after? How much funding they have? What percentage of your budget do they actually fund? Do they take Canadian projects? If they do, what percentage Canadian, what percentage German? Like it was very, like, I asked the right questions. And now after that, this year I developed an unscripted doc feature I produced. So I was able to pitch that feature over a Zoom meeting to that executive that I had met at Banff. So now 2 years ago, I made that contact. If I had skipped that meeting because I didn't have anything to pitch, they wouldn't have known me. I wouldn't have known them. I would not have ever thought about pitching this project that I'm working on now to them, right? So never say no to a meeting. Even if you only have 30 seconds before you see their face, Google does, it can make a huge difference. Just go on LinkedIn, go on their website, go on that television broadcaster's website, see if you see a few shows that you've heard of, right? Just do your research quickly at the time, and sometimes it works out.
Yeah, that's a great example, because I think what I was getting at was it's so tricky, because you want to take advantage of these incredible opportunities to meet these people you might never otherwise get a chance to speak with, but it might not be good product market fit now. So you want to gather additional data for future reference in case there's a better fit in the future. But like, this is kind of going to be a waste of time, seemingly a waste of time short term. But you have to demonstrate that you have the professional mindset of having done enough due diligence that while you recognize that short term there is an opportunity, there could be a long term opportunity. And so it's such a fine line to figure that out, to take advantage of those moments.
Add on, or I forget, sorry, just to add on to that, I was quite transparent with them at the time because it was a no-show that I was filling in for. So I told them I just got this meeting 60 seconds before meeting with you right now, and it's because someone didn't show up, and I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself and Flyaway Films to you. So, and they were actually, they were very positive towards that. So being transparent always helps as well. Unless if your transparency is like, I didn't sleep last night because I was partying, so I didn't look you up. That's not a good excuse.
That's it. I think that is a skill that you develop where it's like you have to do as much due diligence as you can. You need to be transparent and vulnerable to an extent, but figuring out how your relationship with your own self and anxiety can sometimes lead to you oversharing or sometimes lead to you undersharing. Banff's very expensive. It's expensive to fly into Calgary. It's expensive to take the shuttle to Banff. It's expensive, as I was advised by a mentor, Deborah, who's been on this podcast. She said, if you can get an early bird deal on the Fairmount, pay for the Fairmount, because as I did end up experiencing, I shared an elevator with one of the Netflix execs because they were staying there. And it was like, oh, glad I didn't stay at the hostel that would have led to me walking up the mountain in the rain to save $100 a night. It's like, well, this was worth the extra $100 because I was sharing elevators with like execs. So, but it's expensive. Like, in a way, you're buying your way into this exclusive club at this luxury resort in the heavens of the Rocky Mountains. And you're networking on a terrace overlooking these stunning vistas. Can you speak to how you carve out budget for these types of events every year? I know you were at Berlin this year, and I've done it every year. I do some of these myself. So what's your approach to ensuring that you have the money to do some of them, but also not getting carried away with all of them?
Yeah. So there are two things that I do. One is every year I make sure there is an investment budget that I have at Flyaway Films where we invest that money into our own company every year. So that investment money is used towards this. The other thing I also do is there's a lot of funding available as well. For example, the arts councils have travel grants. Ontario Creates has it. And then with, for example, Banff Spark, they do give you a 1,500 stipend. There are a lot of and then Real World, if you're a Real World alumni, which I am, they also give you a travel stipend. So you just need to figure out, it's almost like how, you do a financing plan for your film or your project. It's like a financing plan for your year-long travels. I don't go to every market. I only go to markets where I know I can get something out of it, which will help generate more income or revenue for the projects that I'm taking there or for my company. So I'm very strategic when I choose them. I try not to do more than 3 markets a year because I know if I have, for example, I have a few kids projects that I'm taking. There are a few comedies. There's a dramedy as well. There's an unscripted show and a doc feature. That's what I'm taking with me. So if I know that most of my slate, let's say, for example, most of my slate has kids projects, then I know I'll try to go to Kids Screen or like a market which kids. I know Banff doesn't have a huge market for kids, but it does have a market. CBC Kids is there, TVO Kids is there, BBC Kids is also there. So I know that those are my broadcasters I can pitch those to. But now I know Banff is not just for kids, it's mostly for TV and stuff. So my priority slate would be all the other projects, and then secondary slate is my kids projects. So I really try to make sure that I have a finance plan for myself. How am I investing in myself, and where am I getting that money from to make sure that I can attend these and I don't go into bankruptcy, which can be very easy to do. So you have to plan ahead. For next year, I'm already starting to plan where am I traveling next year and where is that money coming from.
That's all been great advice on Netflix Diversity of Voices, Banff World Media Festival, and kind of your strategic approach to attending opportunities like that and taking advantage of them. I'll get you on the show again, hopefully to talk more about the craft on directing and producing. Before we take off, what's the best advice you think you've ever gotten?
I think the best advice is go slow in order to fast track. So be at your own pace. You're not in a race. You're in a race with your own self. Be at your own pace. Know exactly what you want, where you want to be. Having that goal as well is very important. And what are you going to do to achieve that goal? What are the steps that you're taking? And write those down. Because if you don't write it down, sometimes you just don't end up doing it. Write it down and have it in front of you.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh my God, I have tons, but one movie which I can never forget, it's a Hindi movie called Black. But I can go on and on with like tons of movies, but that movie is something I can never forget because of its acting, cinematography, music, everything.
Awesome. Can't wait to watch it this weekend. And finally, what do you got going on? What do you have around the corner? What festivals are you playing? What shows do you have coming out?
So I'm producing Daniel Everett Locke's feature documentary, which we've submitted it to festivals now. We're waiting to hear back. We start the theatrical release in January next year. We've partnered with many, many great organizations. The documentary is on the global effects of nuclear testing. And we had some great interviews. It's such a phenomenal film, and I just can't wait to see it on the big screen. Then, of course, we have lots of shorts that are going to, in production, and then they're all at different stages. It's so difficult to explain. But then we have, we are going into production very soon on a kids project, which you'll probably be able to see early next year as well on TV. And then we have our feature sports film that we are waiting for the green light for. So that's also there. And then Rock the Cradle is also playing at Voices with Impact Festival. And I know your film is there as well, Gavin. And that's coming up in June as well. And there's so much happening. This is great. It's fantastic.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on all your success. I'm so glad we had the chance to meet at Banff and stay in touch and working on some projects together. So thanks for your time. Looking forward to the next.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.